Video games have always had bugs and glitches. Usually they're annoying for the player and get in the way of a positive gameplay experience, but sometimes they can lead to new modes of play that weren't originally intended. Some small communities took the glitches in games and saw an opportunity to carve their own path and create something new. And that's what I want to explore today. Welcome to Macleod. If you played COD 4, you should recognise this map, and if you ever tried glitching out of a map in COD 4, you'll probably recognise this iconic spot. If a spot in a video game map can be iconic. The first intentional glitch I remember doing was right here, after watching a video guide on how to do it. The reason this spot is so well known is because of how easy it is to escape the map here. 3 quick hops and you're onto a roof on the outskirts of the map. From here you could drop down and explore the streets, get onto a couple of other rooftops, or fall blissfully into the abyss. There was loads to explore, and it felt like you'd really discovered a secret, not to mention that you'd successfully landed 3 kinda difficult jumps. And this was only the beginning of glitching in the COD 4 community. Thinking back, I'm pretty sure that every single multiplayer map in COD 4 has been glitched out of in some way or another. There were simple jumps, strafe jumps, rocket jumps, bounces where hitting a piece of geometry at the right angle would bounce you back up into the air, elevator glitches where you could get stuck inside an invisible wall and float straight upwards, and more. I even remember a glitch on Xbox 360 where opening the dashboard would freeze your character in midair. If you then got a friend to knife you a couple times, the knockback effect would add up and shoot you into the sky. The crazy thing is that most of these glitches are still possible in the game. They never got patched out. This makes sense when you consider that COD 4 was released back in 2007, before developers could easily throw out a large patch of the internet to fix problems like this. Most people had hard disk copies of this game. The community was rabid for this stuff too. Glitches were really popular on YouTube, and there was a noticeable effort to build a community to share these glitches and discover new ones. It wasn't long before dedicated mods started popping up to take glitches in the game and turn them into a full-blown game mode. This game mode came in the form of a mod called COD Jumper. It's worth noting that COD Jumper had been around long before COD 4. A similar mods had existed for earlier entries in the Call of Duty series, but I have no experience with those earlier mods or games, so I'll stick to what I know. COD Jumper for COD 4 was originally developed by mod author Drofter, who had previously created a similar mod for Call of Duty 2, and then was further developed by Soviet. It has multiple features, but the primary ones are the ability to save and load your position in the map through a keybind, the removal of damage, and unlimited ammo. These features made it much easier to try a jump numerous times without the need to run back to the start point every time. The excellent mod support in COD 4 meant that you could join a server and download the mods it was running automatically without needing to visit a website in your browser, just like how some Steam Workshop games work now. This made it as simple as joining a COD Jumper enabled server to download the mod. Websites hosted demos for jumps achieved using COD Jumper, allowing the community even more ways of sharing their glitches, which were getting more difficult by the week. This ease of access and gamification of the glitching process brought more and more players into the community. In fact, COD 4 jumping is still going strong to this day, with active servers still running the mod. I spent hours and hours trying to perfect jumps using this mod, and have fond memories of finally landing a jump as my friends were moaning at me that they wanted to go play the game properly. But to me, this was just as good, if not better, than playing the game the intended way. This was where my interest in glitching really started, but it's not where it stopped. Newer Call of Duty games, and most modern shooters in general, are plagued by the invisible wall and a dev team that clearly looks out for potential glitches like this during the development cycle. I don't think we'll ever see a game like COD 4 again for jumping, especially where not intended, but at the time it was magical. Now let's move on to a more modern game with a similar story. Counter-Strike has an incredible history of glitching through multiple revisions of the game. The current offering, CSGO, has some of the largest communities dedicated to these glitches of any game out there. Like COD, CS has many different glitches in the movement mechanics of the engine that can be exploited in order to traverse maps in strange ways, including bunny hopping, surfing, and crouch jumping. One of the main differences, however, is that CS has much more extensive modding tools available, and so more elaborate game modes and maps can be made that are specifically designed to use these glitch mechanics to have fun. My main pastime, outside of competitive matchmaking in CS, is definitely surfing. Again, I'm no expert, but I enjoy swooping along the carefully planned out maps with a podcast in the background, repeating sections over and over until I can do them without thinking. Just as you're about to give up, another player might zoom past you at light speed and rekindle your desire to improve. That's one of the odd things about online sessions like this. You don't really interact with the other players directly most of the time. But you can still enjoy playing together, showing each other neat tricks, or messing around in the spawn area between runs. Sure, you're alone in your room, wasting away hours in a strange mod for a video game, but you're doing it alongside a group of other like-minded players. The CSGO modding scene is alive and well too, more so than COD 4. There are hundreds of servers online dedicated to surfing, bunny hopping, climbing, and more, and you'll always be able to find full lobbies. CSGO modders even go one step further, making actual game modes that revolve around the glitches found in the game. Two examples come to mind. The first is Surf Deathmatch, which is exactly as you'd imagine. Players swoop around a deathmatch arena map made entirely of angled, surfable surfaces, whilst trying to best each other in a fight. It's carnage, and I am utterly useless at it. I feel a bit more at home on the second, Death Run. This mode, like many others that I've talked about during this video, exists in multiple games, and I used to actually play it in Garry's mod. It was one of the reasons I moved from console to PC in the first place. In Death Run, there are two teams, the runners and the deaths. The premise is simple. The deaths can activate a series of traps across a linear map as the runners try to make their way through it. To be clear, being able to perform a good bunny hop isn't necessary to be a good runner in this mode, but it does help immeasurably. Good players can speed through the map quicker than the deaths can activate the traps in some cases, almost like the speed running a multiplayer game mode, using an engine glitch that has been entirely incorporated and accepted into a custom game mode created by the community. Now, we're really getting somewhere. Finally, I want to talk about what I consider to be the peak of gameplay derived from glitches, and that's speedrunning. Specifically, categories that allow for game glitches. Speedrunners utilize glitches, mechanical skill, and a deep understanding of a game's systems in order to blast through it as quickly as possible. Sometimes the glitches are skill-based, such as utilizing strafe jumping and other such techniques, and other times they're really just memory-based, taking a certain route to skip a cutscene, or dying in a strategic position to skip to a future checkpoint. What these people have managed to do is create an entire new game mode to complete the game as fast as possible, through any means necessary, that can be applied to almost any game. Speedrunning has a massive community and grows more every year, so I have no hope of covering everything. I thought I'd just focus on one of my favourite glitch-based speedruns. As should be clear from this footage, I am not good at speedrunning at all. This is my first ever try at the first few levels of Half-Life 2, following the excellent tutorial series by Warzone, link in the description. This speedrun utilises so many glitches, I couldn't list them all. Warzone calls them techs. The crazy thing about this speedrun is that you need to perfect all of the different techs, learn the pathing, and then string the techs together without taking multiple tries. In the Call of Duty clips you saw at the start, some of the bounces took me hundreds of attempts to get right. When you're speedrunning, every time you miss a tech, you're losing precious time from your run. On top of this, speedrunners often run their games with a live audience, either at a convention or via a live stream, adding to that pressure. The creativity and technical understanding of how the game functions that you can find in these runs is incredible. Runners really pick games apart and keep finding new techs years into the life cycle of a popular speedrunning title. Let's talk a little bit about the techs shown in this video, although again, if you want to learn about them in detail, Warzone series will be a much better source of information. The core tech I'm using is accelerated backhopping, ABH for short. This tech allows you to exceed the normal player movement speed limit by tricking the game into thinking you're travelling forwards whilst actually travelling backwards. Each time you hit the ground, the engine attempts to decelerate you, but actually ends up accelerating you instead. The timing is quite precise and almost impossible if you don't bind the jump function to your scroll wheel. But it is repeatable once you get it down. There are variations of this tech that allow you to see forwards as well, but I haven't quite gotten the hang of them yet. I'm also using a tech to shove AI around called teleporting. The basic version of this is that a prop, when moved correctly as an AI is pathing to a new location, will block the AI in such a way that the engine cannot path their movement to their destination correctly, so it just teleports them instead. As I understand, you can do this with any prop in the game, but some make it easier than others and each requires a slightly different technique. You have also seen me use the save load tech, once to clip outside of the train right at the start, and once here to cause this car to stop in a different location to normal. Saving and then immediately loading the game can upset the physics and AI of certain objects in the game. In this case, the car pretty much loses its AI and stops driving, sliding to a halt wherever it is. This next tech is a bit weird to explain, but the idea is to get this prop stuck on the edge of the collision model of the car tyre, causing it to float. I then crouch jump into the prop at the correct angle, forcing my player collision box to clip through the floor. My collision box will then move with whatever velocity I had when I hit the prop until it goes inside some valid game bounds, which, if you've lined this trick up properly, is the very final corridor of this mission, skipping a bunch of slow cutscenes and elevators. Now, I find myself wondering what the point of this video is. What's the conclusion? I didn't really start out with a point to make. I just wanted to talk about a world that I find fascinating. I suppose my takeaway is that the act of playing a video game can be an incredibly creative process. A game gives you a set of mechanics and an objective, but you don't always have to stick to them. Sometimes you can have the most fun by thinking outside the box and trying something new. Maybe the next time you play a new game, you could discover the next great way to create new gameplay through glitching.